The wind howled through the frozen trees, cold and sharp like tiny knives. Two little alien girls walked barefoot in the deep snow. Their small feet had turned red, and their thin clothes gave no warmth. The older one held the younger's hand. Tightly, both were crying, softly at first. But the cries became louder with each step. "Mama!" The younger girl whispered, tears freezing on her pale cheeks. "Where is Mama?" The older one, just a few years older, didn't answer. Her name was Leary, and the younger was called Nami. They had been walking for what felt like hours. Their legs were shaking. Their lips were turning blue. She said she would come back. Leary said, her voice almost gone, she promised. But their mother had not returned. They had waited in the broken cabin until night fell. Then the strange lights came from the sky. Then the house burned. Then they ran. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds. No footsteps. Just the wind. Suddenly, a sound echoed behind them. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow footsteps in the snow. Lir. Stopped. Her ears twitched. Nami turned and gasped. A tall figure was walking through the mist. Big, dark, silent. "Mama?" Nami whispered hopefully. Leary pulled her close. "No," she said. "That's not her." The figure came closer. The girls froze. The man stepped into the light. He was tall, dressed in black alien armor. His skin was rough, gray-blue, with scars across his face. His eyes glowed faintly yellow, tired, dangerous. Leary's hands began to shake. "It's him," she whispered, voice filled with fear. "It's our father." The man stopped a few steps away. He looked down at them. "You're alive," he said, his voice deep, low, and heavy like a stone. The girls did not move. Nami began to cry again. Louder this time. He took a slow step forward. Leary stepped in front of her sister. "Don't touch her." Leary shouted, her small voice brave and broken. The man stopped. His face didn't change. But something passed. Through his eyes, regret, sadness. I didn't know you were still here," he said. "You left us." Leary cried, her hands trembling. "You left Mama. You left us. I had no choice." "You always say that." He knelt in the snow, his armor sinking into the white. He reached out his hand. "I came back for you," he said softly. But the girls didn't move. They only stared. Behind him, the forest shifted. The wind blew stronger, but no one spoke. Then Leary whispered, "Where is Mama?" The man looked down. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, he answered. "Gone," he said. "They took her. I was too late." Nami screamed. Leary held her tightly, trying to calm her, but her own tears fell like ice. Her body trembled, not just from the cold, but from the truth. "She's not coming back?" Nami asked. "No," the man said. "But I will protect you now. I swear it." Leary looked into his glowing eyes. She wanted to believe him. But all she remembered were the nights waiting for someone who never returned. The explosions. The fire. The silence. She stepped back, pulling Nami with her. "You're not our dad," she said. He stood up slowly. Snow fell from his armor. His face was hard to read. Pain? Anger? Maybe both. "I am," he replied. "But I know I don't deserve to be." He turned and began walking ahead, through the trees. "There's a shelter nearby," he said without turning. "You can follow me or stay in the snow." The girls looked at each other. Nam. I wiped her eyes. Should we trust him? Leary didn't answer right away. She looked at the path ahead. Then back at the empty forest behind them. She whispered, "He didn't yell. He didn't hurt us." The cold wind blew harder. Finally, Leary nodded. "But we stay together. Matter what." And hand in hand, they followed the man through the snow. Behind them, the forest closed like a memory lost in the wind. But neither girl knew what waited in the shelter. And neither could forget the sound of their mother's last Promise, I'll be back before the snow falls." And now, it was snowing. The snow crunched under heavy boots as the tall alien man led the way through the icy forest. Behind him, two little girls followed, silent, uncertain, and afraid. Leary kept her grip tight on Nami's hand. The younger girl was shivering, her breath showing in soft clouds. The cold was biting, but Leary's mind was focused on something colder, the man in front of them. He said he was their father, but Leary remembered things differently. She remembered his angry voice, his cold eyes, the way he had walked away when their home was under attack. He didn't come back, not when the sky burned, not when their mother bled, not when the bombs fell. Now suddenly he had returned. He said he wanted to protect them. But why now? "Where are we going?" Leary asked, her voice small. The man didn't turn his head. "There's a shelter," he said, "not far. I made it when I escaped them." "Who's them?" Leary asked again. He paused for a second. His voice dropped lower. "The ones who took your mother." Nami looked up. "She's still alive?" The man said nothing, just kept walking. The silence after that was loud. Soon they reached a narrow hill covered in thick snow. Behind some frost-covered trees was a broken metal door half buried in the ground. The man bent down and pulled it open. The door creaked like it hadn't been touched in years. A narrow stairway led underground. "Go in," he said, looking back at them. Leary didn't move. "You go first." He didn't argue. He walked down the stairs slowly, letting the warm orange glow from below light his path. The air coming out smelled like old firewood and rust, but it was warmer than outside. Leary stepped forward carefully, pulling Nami with her. The shelter was small but dry. Inside was a round space with metal walls, a soft fire glowing in the middle, and some supplies, blankets, a water can, and a few food bars. A thin bed was placed in the corner. It wasn't much, but after walking in the cold for hours, it felt like heaven. The girl sat near the fire, huddled under a single blanket. The man removed parts of his dark armor slowly. Underneath, his arms were covered in scars, some old, some fresh. His face looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from them, silent. Finally, Leary asked, "Why did you leave us?" The question floated in the air like smoke. The man looked at the fire. "Because I was afraid," he said. "You? You were a soldier, a killer." "Yes," he said quietly. "I was trained to fight, to destroy. But I didn't know how to protect. Not my family, not even her. Then why come now? Because I heard she was gone," he said, his voice breaking for the first time. "And I couldn't lose you too." Leary didn't know what to say. She had imagined this moment so many times, him returning, them shouting, pushing him away. But now, sitting here, warm and weak, all she felt was confusion. Nami asked softly, "Are you going to take us away?" "No," he said quickly. "Only if you want to come." "Where would we go?" He looked at them for the first time, not as strangers, but as his daughters. "There's a safe zone," he said, "a human base. I worked with them once. They protect children, even alien ones." "Humans?" Leary said. Surprised, he nodded. "They have food, warmth, doctors. I was too ashamed to go back before, but now I'd do anything to keep you alive." Leary thought. "For a while, why didn't you ever hold us when we cried?" She asked. His head dropped slightly. "Because I was made for war, not love. I didn't know how to be a father. Then why do you want to be one now?" He looked straight at her. "Because I finally understand what it means to lose everything." The room fell silent again. Only the crackling of fire remained. Nami leaned her head on Leary's shoulder. Half asleep. I wrapped the blanket tighter around them. "You'll sleep first," the man said. "I'll stay awake, watch the entrance." Leary stared at him. "If you try anything at all, you'll protect her," he said with a small nod. just like your mother did." That made Leary freeze. He knew. He knew about the night their mother bled protecting them. Maybe he had watched from a distance. Maybe he had seen it all and done nothing. She didn't know. She didn't care. But tonight, she didn't have the strength to fight him. She closed her eyes slowly, and in the darkness, she whispered something she didn't expect herself to say. "Don't leave us again." And from across the room, a tired voice replied, "I won't." Leary woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. The fire had died down, but the warmth still lingered in the shelter. Nami slept soundly beside her, curled like a kitten under the blanket. The room was quiet, too quiet. She sat up slowly. The chair near the door was empty. The man, their father, was gone. Her heart skipped. She tiptoed to the stairway and peeked outside. The snow was falling lightly, and the wind had grown soft. Morning light touched the trees, turning the ice-covered branches into silver blades. But what caught her eyes were the footprints. Heavy boots, leading away from the shelter. Fresh. And alone. Leary's breath froze in her throat. He had left them, again. But why? She ran back inside and shook Nami awake. "Nami," she whispered, "he's gone." The little girl blinked and sat up. "What? Where?" Leary grabbed the blanket and wrapped it around her sister. "Stay here, I'll check. Don't come out, okay?" But Nami clung to her hand. "No, please, I want to come too. Don't leave me like Mama." Leary's heart broke a little, but she nodded. Together, they stepped into the snow. The cold bit into their bare toes again, but they followed the footprints quietly, carefully. Leary watched the patterned fast steps, then slower, almost like he was unsure where he was going. They walked through the trees until they saw him. He was standing alone in the middle of the forest, facing something in the snow. His back was to them, his hands shaking. Leary motioned for Nami to stay low. She crept closer. Then she saw what he was looking at, a small piece of cloth, frozen and half buried in the snow. Leary recognized it. It was their mother's shawl, the same one she wore the night she disappeared. Liri gasped. The man turned around. His eyes were red, not glowing but filled with pain. "You followed me," he said softly. Leary didn't answer. "She was here," he whispered, kneeling beside the cloth. "She must have passed through here after the raid. I should have known." He touched the cloth gently, like it would break. Leary stepped forward. "How do you know it's hers?" He looked up at her. "Because I bought it for her. On our bonding day," he said. "Before the war changed everything." Leary's hands clenched. "You still left us." He nodded, accepting her words. "I was a soldier," he said, "programmed to fight, not to feel. When the battle started, I was pulled away. I didn't choose to leave. You could have come back. They told me you were dead." Leary's eyes widened. "What?" "The colony was marked as lost," he said. "No signals, no survivors. I searched, but when I returned, everything was ash." He looked down. "Until now." The wind blew gently, carrying a sound something like humming. Leary turned. Nami stood a few steps behind, hugging herself. The man stood up slowly. "I know you don't trust me," he said, "but I need to find her. If she's still alive." He paused. "She might be a prisoner." Leary's heart raced. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe her mother was still alive. But too many lies had already been told. What if this is a trick? She asked. He looked her straight in the eyes. "You can run," he said. "You can hide. But I won't force you. Just know this, I won't stop until I bring her back." He turned away, leaving the shawl where it lay. Leary stared at it for a long time. Then she bent down and picked it up. It was cold, stiff with frost, but it smelled like something familiar. Like warmth. Like comfort. Like the last hug her mother gave her. She pressed it against her chest. Nami walked over and held her hand. "We go with him?" she asked softly. Leary didn't speak. She just looked at the man walking slowly ahead. Something in the way he walked. It wasn't like before. It wasn't cold or careless. It was heavy, full of memory, full of weight. She turned to Nami. "If she's alive," Leary whispered, "we have to try." The two girls followed him again. This time not out of fear, but out of hope. As they disappeared deeper into the trees, the wind carried away the last sound of the morning, the quiet crunch of 3 sets of footprints in the snow. And far away, hidden behind frozen hills, a shadow watched them go. Not all was safe, not yet. The path grew darker as the 3 of them moved deeper into the forest. The tall man, silent and serious, walked ahead, while Leary and Nami followed behind him like small shadows in the snow. Their bare feet hurt with every step, but they didn't complain. Not yet. Leary kept glancing around. The forest felt different here. The trees were taller, and their frozen branches reached down like claws. The wind had changed direction. "It whispered now. "I don't like this place," Nami said quietly, holding Leary's hand tighter. "I know." Leary replied, "Me neither." The man suddenly stopped. He pointed to a rocky hill, half covered in thick snow and dead vines. "There," he said, "that's the real shelter. We'll be safe inside." From the outside, it looked like a simple cave, but Leary noticed something strange. The entrance had metal beneath the snow. It wasn't just a natural cave. It was made, built, hidden. The man touched the side of the wall, and a soft blue light blinked. A hidden panel slid open with a low hum. Leary stepped back. "Why? Is there a door?" she asked. He looked at her calmly. "It was once a supply bunker, abandoned during the war. I found it, fixed the inside. It's protected from weather and drones." He stepped inside first, lighting small lanterns that filled the cave with a soft glow. The walls were lined with smooth metal. There were old weapons stacked in corners, some blankets, a few supplies. A locked box sat in the back. Nami entered slowly and sat near the small heating unit. Her hands held out for warmth, but Leary stayed at the entrance, watching. Something didn't feel right. He didn't force them inside. He didn't yell, but that made her even more unsure. Was this kindness or a plan? He took off his outer armor and leaned it against the wall. Then he spoke softly. "You can rest now." Leary walked in slowly. Her eyes stayed on the locked box in the corner. She didn't like it. "What's in that?" she asked, pointing. "Old data drives, soldier logs, nothing useful anymore." "Can we see?" "No," he said quickly, too quickly. Leary's body to he noticed. "You don't trust me." He said, "No," she answered honestly. He sat down across from her. "Good, you shouldn't. Not yet." She was surprised by his answer. He didn't argue. He didn't try to convince her. "You think I brought you here for a reason," he continued, "and you're right. I need your help." Leary narrowed her eyes. "Help with what?" He looked toward the metal wall. "There's a facility, far beyond the mountain ridge. That's where your mother was taken. I've been planning to go there, but I can't do it alone. Not anymore. My injuries slow me down." "You want us to help you fight?" Leary said, almost laughing. "No," he said. "I want you to survive long enough to see her again." Leary didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her screamed not to. She looked down at her freezing toes. They were turning white. She needed warmth. So did Nami. She stayed, but her mind stayed alert. That night, while Nami slept close to the heater, Leary stayed awake. She sat near the entrance, blanket over her shoulders, eyes open. The man snored softly in the far corner. Leary stood and walked slowly toward the locked box, quiet, careful. She knelt beside it and touched the metal surface. Suddenly, a soft click echoed. She turned around. He was standing, awake, and watching her. "You really don't sleep, do you?" he said, walking closer. I wanted to know what you're hiding. Leary replied, not backing down. He sighed and pressed his hand on the lock. The box opened. Inside were not weapons, not maps, but photos. Real paper photos, old, worn, and faded. One showed him with her mother, smiling. Another showed baby Nami, sleeping in a soft blue blanket. A third showed all four of them. Before the war. Before everything. Leary's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. You kept these? He nodded. They were all I had left of you. Leary didn't speak. She couldn't. Then she asked if this is really a shelter. Why did you hide it for so long? He knelt beside her. Because the last time I trusted someone, they betrayed me. I didn't want to make the same mistake again. They sat there quietly for a long time. No more lies. No more yelling. Just silence. Finally he said, get some sleep. Tomorrow we move. And I'll show you the place where your mother might still be. Leary looked at him one last time, then walked back to Nami, curled beside her. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to close her eyes, but even in sleep she kept one ear open, because she still wasn't sure. Was this shelter truly safety? Or was it just a softer trap? The next morning, Leary opened her eyes to soft, quiet air. No wind, no cold. Just warmth from the heater and Nami's breathing beside her. For a moment, it almost felt like safety, but then she heard movement. She sat up quickly. The man there. Father was standing near the entrance, putting on his armor again. Piece by piece, quietly, with careful hands. He looked older in the light, his eyes sunken, movements slower. Not like a strong soldier, more like a tired man hiding too much. Leary stood. You're leaving again? He didn't turn. Not without you. She frowned. Where are we going? He turned now slowly and spoke in a quiet voice. To show you something. A place. A truth. Leary didn't like riddles, but something in his tone told her it mattered. Nami woke up too. She rubbed her eyes and crawled into Leary's arms. He knelt down and held out two small boots. Old, but warm, for your feet, he said. I saved these, he added. They were your mother's idea. She told me you'd need them someday. That sentence made Leary freeze. She took the boots and helped Nami wear hers. Then she put on her own, and the three of them stepped outside. The path they followed was hidden, narrow, and cold again. But it wasn't far. Only a short climb through frost-covered trees, and over a broken hill. At the top, they saw it. A small wreck-burned metal, torn flags, half buried under snow. A crashed escape pod. What is this? Leary asked. The man stood silently for a moment. Then finally said, this is where your mother tried to take you. The night of the invasion. Leary's chest tightened. She carried you both here, he said, wounded. Alone, I wasn't. With her, I was too late. He stepped closer to the wreckage. When I finally got here, he continued, there was blood, fire, a trail, but no bodies. He pulled something from his armor. A small, cracked necklace, blue stone inside. A silver shell. She dropped this, he whispered, handing it to Leary. Her fingers trembled as she took it. It was real. She remembered it. Her mother wore it always. It made a soft humming sound when touched. Now it was silent, but still warm. Leary held it close. She didn't die here, he said. They took her. And I know who did it. Nami stepped behind. Her sister, who? Leary asked. The man looked toward the distance. A dark mountain stood far away, covered in shadow. The Ralex Corporation, slavers, scientists. They capture refugees, use them for testing. Your mother was strong, she fought. That's why they kept her alive. Leary couldn't believe it. She didn't know whether to cry or scream. Knew this all along? She asked sharply. I suspected, he said, but I didn't have proof, until now. He pulled something else from his armor. A small data chip. What's that? Nami asked. A message, he said, from someone. Who used to work with them? A human. He gave me this before he died. Leary's voice dropped. What's inside? He looked her in the eyes. A recording, he said, of your mother, alive inside a cage. Nami gasped and covered her mouth. Leary's hands went cold again, but not from the snow. Why didn't you show us before? She whispered. I couldn't, he said. I didn't know if I could protect you. Not until now. He placed the chip in a small portable screen. Static buzzed. Then, a flickering video appeared. A dark room. Metal bars. And inside. Her, the girl's mother. Weak. Thin, but alive. Her voice cracked as she spoke. If anyone finds this, if he's watching, tell my daughters I never stopped trying. I love them. The screen blinked off. Silence. Even the wind had stopped. Nami began to cry, quietly, holding Leary's hand. Leary stood frozen. The image burned into her mind. Her mother was alive, suffering, calling out, and they had done nothing. The man lowered his head. That's why I came back, he said, voice thick. Not just to protect you, but to give you a choice. Leary looked up. What choice? We go to that mountain, he said, pointing toward the distant shadow. We get her back. Together. Leary stared at him. Just the three of us? I have no army, he said. But I have you, and you have her fire in your blood. She didn't answer right away. She turned to Nami. The little girl wiped her tears. I want Mama, she said softly. Leary nodded. Then turned back to him. We'll go. But her eyes narrowed. But if you lie to us again, if this is just another story. He nodded solemnly. You'll never have to see me again. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. And for the first time, the man, her father, stood beside her, not in front of her. Carrying not just armor, but a secret heavy enough to change everything. The mountain grew closer with every step, but the air grew heavier too. The snow had turned sharp, almost like tiny needles falling from the sky. The trees were fewer now, replaced by large black rocks and broken metal parts buried in ice. The ground was no longer soft. It was hard, frozen, silent. The man, still wearing his dark armor, led the way. Leary and Nami walked behind him, close together, covered in the blanket he had given them. Their breaths came out in short clouds, and their fingers felt numb. We're almost there, he said quietly. The facility is hidden underground, beyond that ridge. Leary looked up. A large hill of jagged stone rose in front of them. Wind rushed around it, howling like a warning. Something about the place made her stomach twist. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Like a dry branch crushed under a boot. The man raised his hand quickly. Stop, he whispered. The girls froze. His eyes scanned the area, focused like a hunter. He stepped ahead slowly and then dropped to his knees. A tripwire, hidden beneath the snow. He pointed toward the ridge. They've set traps, he said. They know someone's coming. Leary swallowed hard. What now? He reached into his belt and pulled out a small device, a pulse detector. It blinked rapidly. There are at least 3 guards beyond that ridge, he said. Maybe more. He turned to the girls. His voice lowered. I need you both to hide. No, Nami said, grabbing his arm. Don't go alone. I have to, he said gently. If they see you, they'll use you. Leary clenched her fists. What if you don't come back? He stared at her. Then you run. Leary opened her mouth to protest, but then a cry. Faint, weak, but real. A woman's voice calling out from the wind. Help. Please. All 3 of them froze. Leary's heart stopped. That's her, Nami whispered, tears in her eyes. That's Mama. The man stood slowly. His face changed. They're baiting us, he said. What? Leary asked. It's a trick, he explained. They're playing her voice. To lure me in. But what if it's real? Leary cried. What if she's actually calling us? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the ridge, pulled his knife silently from his hip, and said, "Stay behind this rock, no matter what happens." He ran silent as a ghost. The girls dropped behind a thick slab of frozen stone, holding their breath. Then it began. Boom. A loud flash of light burst over the ridge. Shots fired. Leary covered Nami's ears. Screams, growls, the sound of blades clashing. The wind carried the noise like thunder through the hills. Time slowed. Low. I felt frozen, not from the cold, but from fear. And then silence again. Nothing, only the sound of snow falling. She waited. 1 minute. Then 2, then a scream. A man's scream. His scream. "No," Leary whispered, jumping to her feet. "We have to go." "No," Nami grabbed her arm. "He told us to stay. He's hurt." But Leary didn't wait. She ran. The wind tore through her blanket. But she didn't care. Her feet hit the snow fast, sliding, slipping, climbing over the ridge. And then she saw it. Smoke. Blood. A small group of armored figures. Fallen. And in the middle him, on his knees, bleeding from his shoulder, surrounded by 2 more attackers, tall, masked, weapons raised. Without thinking, Leary grabbed a rock and screamed, "Leave him alone." One of the attackers turned surprised and fired, but he missed. The sound distracted the other guard, just long enough. The man, her father, jumped forward and slammed his blade into the guard's leg. The enemy screamed and dropped. The other attacker charged Leary, but before he could reach her, bang! A single shot rang out. From behind. Nami. Tiny hands holding the enemy's dropped blaster, shaking, crying. The attacker fell. Dead. Silence again. Real silence. Leary stared, frozen in shock. Her father stood, bloody and weak, but alive. He looked at Nami, then at Leary. "You didn't run," he said, almost smiling. "No," Leary whispered, "and neither did you." They gathered around the fire later that night. Not in a shelter. But in the wreckage of the enemy's outpost. They had survived. Barely. But now there was one thing left to do. Find the cell, free their mother, and leave this nightmare behind. But none of them said it aloud. They just stared into the fire. Until a soft voice echoed behind them. Weak. But real. "Leary?" The girls turned around, hearts pounding. Eyes wide. Because this time, it wasn't a recording. The voice was soft. It came from the darkness behind the old steel wall. "Leary." Leary froze. Nami's eyes filled with tears. That voice, it wasn't a recording. It wasn't a trick. It was her. The man, bruised and bleeding, stood first. His armor scratched, his hands shaking. He didn't speak. He didn't move toward the voice. He just waited. Leary turned and ran. She pushed aside the broken metal door. A dim light flickered in the narrow hallway. Cold air filled the space. "Mama?" She called out, voice breaking. "Where are you?" "Here." The voice replied again, even weaker now. I'm here." Leary followed the sound, Nami right behind her, holding her hand tightly. Step by step, they walked down the ruined hallway until they saw her, their mother. She sat in the corner of a small locked room, her body thin and tired, clothes torn, skin pale blue and bruised, but her eyes were still the same, gentle, strong, full of love. The moment her gaze met Leary's, she gasped, "My girls." Nami screamed, "Mama." They both ran forward and wrapped their arms around the cold steel bars, crying hard. The mother dropped to her knees, reaching through the gap. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. Leary pressed her face against the bars. "We came to find you. We didn't give up." Behind them, the man slowly stepped into view. Their mother's eyes met his. The air went still. She stood up, weakly. Her voice changed. "You." He didn't respond. "You. Left us behind, she said, not shouting, but with pain deep in her voice. You said you would come back. I tried, he said. I failed. She took a slow breath. Why now? Because I couldn't live with the silence anymore, he said, eyes full of guilt. I couldn't live with losing you. Leary looked between them. Please. No more fighting. Just get her out. He nodded. He walked up to the keypad on the wall. It was damaged, wires exposed. He took a deep breath and pulled a tool from his belt. Stand back, he said. He sparked the wires together. The lock sizzled. Then, click. The door slid open. The mother fell forward. But he caught her. For a moment, they just stood there. Number. Words. Then she looked into his eyes. Are they safe? Yes, he said. Because of you. She smiled faintly, then turned and opened her arms. Leary and Nami rushed in, hugging her tightly. The three of them cried together, curled in one broken embrace, cold, hurt, but hold out. Later that night, the family sat beside a fire they had built outside the wreckage. The snow had stopped. Stars shone above them. The mountain behind them was silent now. Their journey was not over, but the worst part was behind them. Leary sat beside her mother, holding her hand. Nami lay in her lap, half asleep, clutching the old necklace. The man sat across the fire, watching, waiting, not speaking. He didn't know what to say. But then, Nami looked up, her eyes soft. Papa, she whispered. He blinked. She crawled toward him slowly, hugged his side, and rested her head on his arm. Then Leary stood, walked over, and sat beside him too. We didn't forgive you before, she said quietly. But now, we understand. He looked at her. Why? Because you came back, she answered. And this time, you didn't run. He took a deep breath. For the first time, he smiled. Not a big smile, but a real one. Their mother watched from across the fire. Her face was still full of pain, but also peace. You're not the same man you were before, she said, her voice soft. And I hope this time you stay. He nodded. I will. In the morning, they began walking toward the human base. The snow was no longer their enemy. The silence was no longer painful, and as they moved forward, Nami reached up and held both her parents' hands. Leary walked beside them, head held high. Once, they cried for their mother, then they feared their father. But now, they called him Dad, and they were no longer alone.